Hey, it's Terry, your favorite no bullshit artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terry Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. What is up? It has been a minute since I've done a solo. Hello, what's up? It's been a minute since I've done a solo episode. Of course, I love bringing new, fresh perspective into this space, but I also love sharing the things that I've learned as I'm learning them. And I just sat in on a workshop where they brought in a couple of collectors, like very, very serious collectors, and they were shedding light on why they collect and just in general their approach to collecting art. So I figured what's a better platform than to actually share that with you all, get you some insider information, give you the perspective from the buyer's point of view, and just talk a little bit about that, because oftentimes there's this message that's put out into the world where it's like how to get collectors, how to find collectors, or how to bring them into your space. Well, I mean, I hate to break it to you, collectors are not like, it's not like fishing. It's not like you go into the pond and you just kind of hook something and you bring them into your space and they automatically become a collector. It takes a lot of relationship building, which happens over time, over years. It takes a certain type of person, and not everyone is a collector. So we can't cater our message to everyone, and we shouldn't, because you would just essentially be speaking into the abyss. So a couple of updates on my end. Many of you know that I had a crazy, crazy birthday. My birthday was December 11th, and I spent it in the ER. Not super bummed about it, super bummed that I'm still sort of dealing with this, but I had what's kind of gross, I guess, is a lodged kidney stone. Now, I had two kidney stones like 20 years ago. One passed. I felt like I was giving birth without an epidural. And then the other one 20 years later has come to bite me in the ass. So I spent the entirety of the 3 days, including my birthday, in the ER, had some amazing nurses, had some really interesting 86-year-old roommates. It was quite the experience. And so I'm in full recovery mode, and I am still just feeling my December deals so hard. So if you're not familiar with those, every year during my birthday, I mean, I'm a party girl, so I love to celebrate my birthday with other people. There is no better way for me to celebrate life than with the people who have cultivated who I am and helped to allow me to grow and have accepted me unconditionally. And so, I want to bring you all into that space, and I want to make my services and my own expertise accessible. So I have a couple of deals that are 41% off right now. They expire December 25th. So definitely jump on those. 41% off of live coaching is an insane deal. And I'm not just saying that, it is an insane deal. Coaching is, a pretty serious investment. I know that firsthand, but this is a great way also to just experience the type of attention that coaching allows for, and the type of opportunities that you might be open to, and the type of potential that you might be unlocking when you do have even just one 45-minute coaching session. So take a look at those. Everything is the link in my bio. I'll also link it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to rate it. All of those things really help to boost visibility, of course, and help other artists find this awesome podcast. So let's get into this episode. Here are some of the reasons that I really picked up when I was listening to these interviews. And there were about four people. I would say that there were two women and one male. And I would say that they were definitely above their 50s, which, to be honest, they're serious collectors. So they've been doing this for quite some time. And, you know, back in the day, collecting art, having portraits made of yourself, having these personal possessions definitely gave you a leg up in your status and was all about status, right? If you had a portrait made of you, sometimes you had some personal attributes that you would include or some symbolic symbolic little things that were included in these paintings. And if you've ever taken an art history class, you might be familiar with like vanitas or just the history of portraiture in general. So the collectors that were being interviewed were definitely on the older side and more mature and really had developed their knowledge of art, but they were not artists themselves. None of them mentioned owning a gallery. None of them mentioned, this was based on their personal lifestyle choices. So I have a couple of things that I really stood out to me that I think is going to impact artists and the ways that they view how collectors move, why they buy certain things, what they're in love with, what grabs their attention. I did not get the impression that some of these collectors were hanging out on Instagram. However, things have changed and things will continue to evolve in terms of the ways that people find artwork, because there are just so many ways to find artwork these days. There's so much talent out there and there's really room for everyone at this point. So number one is that there's a personal effort to want to acquire artwork, right? It has to be like innate, organic, internal. Maybe you are someone who is a creative in general. Maybe you're someone who just like likes to make things or likes to dress up your home or likes to kind of put, personal touches on things. And so that's really at the root of a lot of reasons people collect artwork. That's totally a given. The second thing is that they have a passion for art. Maybe they were brought up in a creative atmosphere, similarly to my lifestyle. My mother was a seamstress. My mother worked for a gay couple who had an interior design company, and she would just make all of their draperies and all of those things. And she also had like her own crafts on the side. She would make me the ugliest hats that made me look like Blossom. I don't know if you're familiar with the 90s show Blossom, but I was essentially her doll. She also would use toilet paper to make these little dolls. She had this technique where she would roll the toilet paper on the straw, scrunch them up, and she would have these little tubes and she would create these like almost like cake toppers. So I grew up in an environment where creating things, sewing and learning how to fix things and learning how to design things was very much a part of my household. So that's really the second thing, is like whether they have been in an environment that has cultivated their passion for art really makes a very big difference in their whole ecosystem of living and what they enjoy seeing. And it's not necessarily like they have to go to openings or they have to go to galleries or museums consistently, but they have an eye for design. They have an eye for like they know what they like. The third thing is that they're eager to explore. And this woman was talking about the fact that like there's so much to life, and she travels. And when she travels, she likes to explore the culture through and through, which is, a huge part of like finding your ideal art buyers. Now, if you're someone who is using themes of, indigenous people from Puerto Rico, which my sister studies and writes many publications about, right? You're going to be catering to and connecting to a very, very specific audience. And so really kind of exploring artwork that people can directly connect to is another reason that people collect artwork. They want to feel as connected as possible. They want to explore their own heritage. The fourth reason that they mentioned in the workshop and in the interviews was that they want to preserve their heritage. So they're investing back into their own culture. They want to embrace the future of their specific regions. They want to keep it alive. They want to honor the people who are making art that reflect their personal either upbringing or culture or beliefs. And so the art for them is really a representation of keeping that alive. And I thought that was really interesting because I had never really heard someone I guess, describe why they buy art in that manner. It felt like it was like a deeper reason with spoken very clearly, and it made complete sense, right? When I travel, I definitely look to buy art as a keepsake of my experience and of my memory, and to keep that in the forefront of my mind forever. When I was in Panama, I, went to one of these very, very kind of off the beaten path textile design, I guess, shops. And it didn't feel like a shop. It felt more like someone's, art studio. And there were these two women there. They didn't speak English, and they had the most beautiful textiles. And these molas, if you know what a mola is or don't know what a molas is, it is a layered textile design that has the indigenous designs, sometimes of animals from like Panamanian culture. They have different characters, and they're very colorful, but they're all sewn in sort of a quilt-like way. And so I knew that I wanted to buy a piece, and I knew that I wanted to buy a piece of clothing. And of course, it was very pricey, but these women had spent hours doing that. And I felt like if I didn't leave Panama with this keepsake, I'll never forget these women. I'll never forget my time in Panama, and really preserving the culture of Panama in my home in Brooklyn is something that's very, very special for me. So that exploration and that sort of desire to submerge yourself in the culture of where you are is a huge proponent of why collectors collect certain pieces. The last thing is that, they are an advocate for the arts. And so they want to spend money in that arena as the investment. And of course, as we know, art grows in value over time. You never know what's going to grow in value. You never know who's going to blow up. And you always want to get something, obviously, with a certificate of authentication. But it's such an interesting way that this one particular woman describes not just her passion, but almost like her strategy for collecting art. And that to me seemed to be the most eye-opening, I guess, thought, like the most eye-opening thing that I picked up from listening to her speak, because it all made so much sense, right? They're not just buying pretty pictures. They're not just buying sculptures to fill up space into their apartments. They love the story, and that's why they're collecting. They're not just one-offs. They're looking to invest in particular artists whose story develops, and they're keepsakes of their culture. So I think that this really opened up my eyes, in particular, if I'm thinking about my artwork, what my artwork is about, and what things come up for me when I'm making artwork has to be clear in order for me to keep and draw the attention of people who are serious art buyers. And I don't want to use the word serious art buyers, but there are reasons behind why they are collectors. There are so many coaches out there, though, that make artists believe that there's this way of catching collectors. You don't catch them. These are people who enjoy relationships with and want relationships with artists. These are people who want to know the story. So when you're messaging to just your average, Instagram art buyer versus someone who has been collecting art over time, the conversations are going to look extremely differently. The price point is probably going to look extremely different. The level of investment in that exchange is going to look very differently. And I think that I speak a lot on, providing a VIP service when people are buying artwork, because it is definitely in many ways a luxury to have artwork. It is an investment. It is a want. It is not necessarily, a necessity to decorate your house and have all of these original pieces of artworks. And so that exchange has to also be very memorable. So when you're rolling out the red carpet, whether someone has just bought a $50 original piece of artwork from you or a $50,000 piece of artwork from you, right? You are still trying to cultivate the same level and closeness in relationships to both of those parties. But I think in this episode, I really wanted to just shed some light on the collector's mindset, because it'll make a huge difference in the ways that we approach our audience on different platforms. There are going to be people that are physically looking for something and intentionally looking for something. And then there are going to be people who just kind of stumble upon you and want to know more. They're inquisitive by nature, they're educated, they are involved in cultural projects, they're interested in their own heritage, they're maybe, collecting different, artifacts from a specific culture. I don't, many of you might know, might not know, but I collect Russian nesting dolls. Now, I am not Russian, but I have this affinity with this idea that things can come apart in layers, that there's a root and there's sort of this small, tiny person in between all of these layers of this little, I call them my little girls. And I have ones that are 2 feet tall. And then I have ones that are 4 inches tall. And I eventually got a tattoo of a nesting doll opening up. And my dad is the one who helped really kind of spark this affinity for Russian nesting dolls, because he has traveled the world. And, he would just bring me back a souvenir. And I'm like, wow, this is so interesting that this analogy between the human mind and the physical and these nesting dolls kind of collapsing into each other. What's in the center? What is in the root of your heart? And so that's kind of is a part of self-expression for me. But I also have now kept this tradition of whenever I go to a different country or a different state, I will do my best to hunt down a new nesting doll and add it to my collection. I would say by now I've collected probably up to 15. And I used to have them actually facing the door because I felt like they all protected me. It was like my girl gang. They all have a very unique property, and a different person has, painted them. And so there's this like story and affinity for me between my dad, between me, and between this like the connection to this story that I've created for myself, and how it makes me feel to have acquired 15 of sort of the same thing. So I want to kind of close, I want to close this episode out by saying that when we are considering, our wants and our desires on who we really want to buy our art, when I think about like my artwork, and I've been working on these little pieces on these charcuterie boards, and I'm like, wow, who would my like ideal person have this in their house? Like where should this be? And I'm able to like envision who I would want to own this piece. Let's just say I was just ready to give it away for free, and it could be Rihanna, it could be, Steven Spielberg, it can be anyone. But I think it's important to really have this vision of who you'd like to truly connect with, not just on a buying money exchange situation, but like who would complete the story of this art piece, right? You've created it, you've connected with it, and now it's time for someone else to connect with it in their own unique way. That's kind of the amazing fucking thing about sharing artwork with worlds, because there are so many different stories that can be created in private by just looking at this sort of visual poem. So without further ado, there are some awesome other episodes. I'm going to be having a couple of guests on the spinoff between the two of us in January, and just, continue to support artists on their journeys. And I can't wait to meet new artists and continue to build a new way of thinking about how artists are received in the professional world, because fuck the starving artist mindset. That's so old. That is so vintage in the worst way. We're going to shut that shit down. And I do that every day whenever I'm on my podcast or whenever I'm on stories or wherever I am. My mission is to ensure that artists feel worthy of living out their passion and making profit from it, because just like anyone else who chooses a profession. You deserve that. I will see you soon. Have a great holiday. If working with me has been floating around in your mind for quite some time, I'm offering a 2024 sign up bonus. There are actually 3 bonuses to start your private coaching experience in 2025. The first bonus is $1,000 off if you pay in full. The second bonus is $500 off if you are interested in a 12-month payment plan, which is the longest payment plan that I have. And then, of course, you get a highly personalized gift that, Jesus, I wish that I would have gotten, that's going to really elevate your customer service experience when you are sending off your packages, and 1 year access to the Creators Power Hour. So make sure that you apply now before December 3rd. Thanks for listening to another unfiltered episode of Terry Talks. I've also got some free resources on my website that will help make your life a lot easier as an artist in business. You can also check out my services or apply to work together. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and sign up for my newsletter for more art industry information. See you on the gram.